Hi, and welcome to our first class on Kriya Tantra. I've just done a little opening video on sort of what to expect for this course. So we'd just like to start with a few preliminary talks. What I'd like to do is just actually do a little bit of a reading and commentary from my teacher, Losang Senator David Gonzalez's text here on an introduction to Tantra. It's being an introduction to Kriya Tantra. So let's just get started with the Heart Sutra as a way of blessing our practice today, and seeing that most of all as Buddhists, our main practice and main tantric practice is realizing emptiness. So, homage to the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir on Mass Vulture's Mountain, together a great assembly of monks and nuns and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection of wisdom, looking perfectly also the five agras being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection of wisdom should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly also the five agras being empty of inherent existence, form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, this all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease. They have no defilement, no separation from defilement. They have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest and complete Buddhas in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal to the unequaled mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tayata Gada Gada Paragata Parasamgati Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great being, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, that he'd spoken well. Good, O son, the lineage is like that. Since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Superior Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so I'd like to just start for our course here on Kriya Tantra, that we start with the short Ganden Lagema Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga as a way of sort of blessing our minds and giving us sort of the energy and guidance, wisdom and compassion to do our studies together. So we can just feel, we'll do this fairly short just to sort of keep time-wise sort of under too much, don't want to do too much of a long session today. So we can just visualize ourselves surrounded by all sentient beings on a ground like a beautiful open plain, like lapis, and a beautiful blue dome of a clear sky above us. Again, our mother on our left, father on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, and people in front of us as objects of compassion. And from there, people all over the world, all the sort of natural living beings from the earth, natural environment of the animal realm, beings from the spirit world, celestial beings like gods and demigods, goddesses, demigoddesses, and so forth, all the celestial beings, in countless beings in lower states of rebirth, hungry ghost realms and hell realms. All of us here together practicing. And above us in the blue sky, we can just visualize beautiful Ganden Pure Land, Bodhicitta Pure Land, with golden Buddha Maitreya. And he's holding two white lotuses seated in a chair. The lotuses have a golden initiation vase, bumpa, and a 8-spoked Dharma chakra as well. And at his heart, sort of coming out some clouds in front of us, are 3 gurus of Tsongkhapa and 3 robes of bumpa, the yellow panda's hat. And he's holding 2 white lotuses. He's in lotus position, holding the mudra of turning wheel of Dharma. And one has a flaming sword, and the other has the Prajnaparamita text. And in front of him are his 2 students, Gyaltsabje or Japa Gyatso, the sort of regent, the first Ganden throne holder, and Kedrupje. So they are, you see them, they're sort of like in meditate, like teaching mudra here, holding a text at their lap, and again, they're in the 3 rows of a monk with yellow pennants caps. Beautiful orange light, golden lights coming down from their hearts, blessing us. As we recite, I and all sentient beings into achieve enlightenment go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings to achieve enlightenment go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I and all sentient beings into achieve enlightenment go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues we collect by giving in other perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. From the heart of the protector of the hundreds of deities of the joyful land, to the peak of a cloud which is like a cluster of fresh white curd, all-knowing Losandrapa, king of the Dharma, please come to this space together with your sons. In this space before me, in a lion-throned lotus and moon, the venerable Guru smiled with delight. O supreme field of merit from my mind of faith, please remain for 100 aeons to spread the doctrine. Your mind of wisdom realizes the full extent of objects of knowledge. Your eloquent speech is the ear ornament of the fortunate. Your beautiful body is the blaze of the glory of renown. I prostrate to you, whom to see, to hear, and to remember is so meaningful. Pleasing water offerings, various flowers, sweet-smelling incense, light-scented water, and so forth, a vast clouds of offerings, both set out and imagined, I offer to you, O supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtues of body, speech, and mind I've accumulated since time without beginning, especially transgressions of my 3 vows, with great remorse I confess each one from the depths of my heart. And this degenerate age is so for much learning and accomplishment, ban the 8 worldly concerns and make your leisure and endowment meaningful. O protector, from the very depths of my heart, I rejoice in the great wave of your deeds. From the billow clouds of wisdom and compassion, the space of your truth body, venerable and holy gurus, please send down a rain of vast and profound dharma, appropriate to the disciples of this world. Through the virtues I've accumulated here, may the doctrine all living beings receive every benefit, especially may the essence of the doctrine of Venerable Losandrapa shine forever. Holding beautiful mandala at your heart here, a purified universe that we're offering up to the gurus. The ground is sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. Om Edam Guru Radha Mandala Kam, Yirtiyami. We send forth this jewel manual to you, precious gurus. I just feel that golden light, like sunlight, is coming down from their hearts, even from Maitreya's heart, blessing us, empowering us, purifying us, opening our hearts and making us more clear as we recite the Migseme mantra of Tsongkhapa here. Big me se wei ter chen chen rei zi, dream ken pei wang po cham pao yan, du pung ma lu chom se sang wei dan, gan chen ke pei sung ken song ka pa, lo sang dra pe sha la so wa de, mig me me se wei ter chen chen rei zi. Dri ben ken bei wang po jam pao yan. Du bun ma lu chong se sang wei dan. Gan chen ke pei sun ken song ka pa. Lo sang dran pei sha bla so wan de. Mi me se wei ter chen chen rei zi. Dri bei, oh my goodness, obstacle here. Dri me ken pei wang po jam pao yan. Du pun ma lu jom se sang wei dan. An chen ke pei sun ken song ka pa. Lo san dra pei sha bla so wan de. It's funny, I was just thinking to leave out as an obstacle to create one in my mind. Oftentimes it's very beautiful just when we recite this. The third line, which is Dun Pun Ma Lu Jom Se Sang Wei Dan, is you leave that one out, is a verse, sort of a line, which is the whole prayer goes as Sangkapa Crown scholars on its nose. You are Avalokiteshvara, treasure of unobservable compassion, Manjushri, supreme spainless wisdom. Vajrayana, the story of Hosamara, is a Losindrap requested your lotus feet, or please grant me your blessings. Tsongkhapa is seen as sort of the emanation of these three Buddhas, Buddha of compassion, wisdom, and power. So Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Vajrayana. So sometimes if you want, like oftentimes at the end of a practice, or we're going to finish up, you leave that line out, which is Dungpung, Malu, Chomse, Samweda, the Vajrayana line out, because it's the idea of all the obstacles are cleared. The power has been given, so you don't need to request that it's already been done. So I was just it's very funny just thinking about doing that. Then I got sort of distracted there a little bit. So I still need the power and the blessings from Vajrayana here clearly. So dissolving the gurus now into our heart, beautiful golden light going down, dissolving into us. Oh, glorious and precious root guru, please sit on the lotus and moon seat at my heart. Please care for your great kindness and grant me blessings of body, speech, and mind. Oh, glorious and precious root guru, please sit on the lotus and moon seat at my heart. Please care for me for great kindness and bestow the common and supreme attainments. O glorious and precious root guru, please sit in the lotus and moon seat of my heart. Please care for me with great kindness, remain firm until I attain the essence of enlightenment. For being cared through all my lives, I conquer some kappas, Mahayana Guru. May I never turn away, even for an instant, from this excellent path praised by the conquerors. Okay, so let's take a look at our book here from David Gonzalez, or Venerable Losang Tsering. I should always call him Losang Tsering because he was ordained in the last couple of years or so of his life. But it's hard when you know someone and love them for so many years. It'd be the same thing as, let's say, if people knew me. I had students that knew me as Matthew, and then I became a monk, and then became Tenzin or something. Sometimes it's always kind of hard, especially if you've done all the instruction all those years as Matthew. Sometimes it's a little bit of a habit you have to overcome there. So looking at his book here, got my reading glasses on, ready to go. There is a great, chapter 1 here, which is the 3 vehicles. There's a bit of a good discussion here. I just wanted to start our course with, again, is a little bit of a review here, just to sort of set our intention for the course on the 3 Principal Paths of Renunciation, Bodhicitta, and Wisdom Realizing Emptiness. So I will read this and just comment a little bit. I think it's very, very good. So here is the, starting here with a little section called Paths Common to Sutra and Tantra. Tsering, or David, says, Buddha presented 2 types of teachings, the esoteric or public teachings known as sutras, and the esoteric or secret teachings of Vajrayana. The sutra teachings were intended for a wide variety of disciples, beginning with those who were seeking happiness in a future life, those wishing for liberation from existence in samsara, and to those who are seeking full enlightenment of Buddha. In In the Sutra teachings, the attainment of full enlightenment takes 3 countless great aeons. Practice of Tantra, on the other hand, is intended only for those who are seeking full enlightenment for the welfare of all living beings and can be accomplished in one life. In particular, practitioners of Tantra have such an extraordinary level of compassion that they are unable to bear the suffering of living beings during the 3 countless great aeons it would take to attain enlightenment through the path of Sutra. So I would say that that's kind of like Tantric renunciation, Tantric Bodhicitta, I should say, is what we really need for to practice Tantra. So, it'd be the house is on fire and your kids are in there. You run out and you realize your kids are still in the house. You're going to run in right away. You're not going to wait for the fire department to show up, start putting it out, and fire people to run in with the full gear. You're going to risk your life. You're going to throw everything down to get your kids. Or let's say even your dog. You hear dogs barking in the kitchen. Oh, the house on fire. I got to run in there and get them. It's that same kind of really intense, strong, devoted compassion you have that you're going to drop everything and really make it the main focus of your life to do this, practice this path. And so that means you're ready to do Tantra, right? It is not, as many people mistakenly think, that Tantric practitioners themselves are impatient with the time it takes to become enlightened, or that practitioners of Tantra don't want to endure the hardships of samsara and the long process of attaining enlightenment, which is true. Imagine someone you love. Suddenly someone comes along and douses them in gasoline and sets them on fire. So here's the analogy I just said. You're not going to wait for the fireman or paramedic to arrive. You're going to do something right now. You're not willing to wait while your loved one suffers. It's not even an option. You must act. This is the kind of motivation you need to enter Tantra. There is a series of questions and answers concerning motivation that one goes through in the process of receiving an initiation. There's also a lengthy verse, often quoted in the general Tantra, that clearly states that if one is seeking the happiness of this life or the happiness of future lives, you're not suitable to practice Tantra. Only if one is seeking full enlightenment, for the welfare of all others, are you allowed to enter the mandala. And the quote he has here from the general Tantra is, some seeking to attain secret mantra, this quote, enter the mandala for the sake of this life. Those wishing for merit are other than them. Others strive for the welfare of others in the world. With much faith and intelligence, they should enter the mandala and strive for that which transcends the world. Do not wish for the fruits of this life, and wishing for this life that transcends the world will not be. Through making effort that which transcends the world, the fruits of this life increase. Continuing, I remember one time during initiation when Lama Zopa Rinpoche paused for a long time, as he often does, and then said something to the effect that, even if I must spend 1 aeon in hell for one sentient being to have one moment of happiness, I will do it. This is the motivation you need to enter Tantra. This moved me deeply. It seemed to me that Lama Zopa Rinpoche was speaking of his own motivation. I often use this as a benchmark by asking myself, would I spend 1 aeon in hell for one sentient being to have one moment of happiness? I often find that I'm not willing to make such a sacrifice, and oftentimes can only aspire to such a motivation. I concur with the text here. It is merely having the wish to generate bodhicitta enough to enter Tantra. I think it is. But that alone is not enough to sustain us continuously. It is not that you can set the motivation one time and then just leave it. It is like tossing a handful of seeds in the dirt, wishing once for a crop and then walking away, neglecting it and wondering why there's no crop at harvest time. For us, the harvest time never comes. Next section, the need for renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness are the 3 principal paths. The need for renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness cannot be overstated. It is what makes the practice of Tantra a cause of liberation and enlightenment. Going for refuge is what makes our practice Buddhist, but without renunciation we cannot attain liberation. Without bodhicitta we cannot attain omniscience. Even if we engage in the most complex and advanced practice of completion stage without renunciation, bodhicitta, or emptiness, our practice will be merely a similitude of Buddhist practice. In fact, it would be quite correct to say that all the techniques and meditations of the 4 classes of Tantra are a means to realizing either emptiness or bodhicitta. For instance, the well-known practice of Tummo, or inner fire, has the capacity to develop profoundly subtle levels of consciousness, capable of ascertaining the nature of reality with such strength that one can be completely transformed within an extremely short period of time. However, without the realizations of renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness, you'll be unable to bring about these profound transformations. Tummo is very popular online in magical communities and different kinds of spiritual communities. That these people take these books and then go around and do them. And again, that's what they want to do. I'm not going to be critical. Do what you want, right? However, if you want these kinds of, at least Buddhist realizations, enlightened realizations, you need the three principal paths. It's just like Sarah said, or David said, it's not enough. There is a great deal of discussion within the practice of Tantra concerning the use of desire on the path to enlightenment, which is often misunderstood subject. The use of desire is meant to generate a blissful subjective consciousness that assists the realization of emptiness. The object of attachment that initially generates bliss is not the object of sustained meditation. Instead, once a blissful subjective awareness is generated, one uses that very awareness to cognize the ultimate nature of reality or emptiness, at which point emptiness becomes one's primary object of concentration. If we did not have renunciation, we would become overly consumed or possibly obsessed with the object of desire, and be unable to leave that object behind and transfer our awareness towards emptiness. Also, the use of desire must be done with the divine pride of being the deity, and without renunciation, the attachment to the object of desire will make it very difficult to maintain mindfulness of oneself as the deity. You must have previously gained a complete disenchantment with attachment for the objects of desire by realizing that attachment is one of the factors trapping us in samsaric existence. Attachment undermines our ability to correctly ascertain the suffering nature of samsara, and instead we only see samsara as desirable. If we view the objects within samsara as desirable in nature, we will never be able to understand the suffering nature of our existence, and will thus never be able to generate renunciation of samsara as a whole. We not even realize our very existence is by nature suffering, and therefore never seek a means to bring an end to our suffering. It is not that we wouldn't believe we are suffering, for everyone understands their suffering, but we will not understand the underlying cause of our suffering. Without renunciation, our aspiration towards enlightenment for the welfare of others will lose any meaning. How often do we see movie stars or celebrities and feel a certain amount of envy? We feel that somehow they have a degree of happiness superior to our own. We may not want to admit it, but most of us do not have complete renunciation for all aspects of samsaric happiness. Happiness is not to be renounced in Buddhist practice, otherwise Buddhists would be profoundly depressed. That's a very important point to me, is that we overestimate the happiness delivered by samsaric pleasures. What we must do is seek the permanent happiness of liberation and enlightenment. Tantric practice suggests that we utilize our desire for sense objects by utilizing bliss generated from enjoying the objects of desire and transforming that blissful awareness into a consciousness, realizing that those objects do not inherently exist. You have to be willing to move beyond the objects themselves, to let go. Otherwise, you will become trapped in the attachment of the object itself. It is important to recognize in the sphere of Tantra, desire can be useful, but attachment is a problem. Also, as in Sutra, our renunciation allows us to feel compassion for all living beings without exception. If we envy celebrity status, how can we feel compassionate for those who have attained it? Our compassion will be discriminative. We must have equanimity that realizes that all living beings, from the most famous and well-endowed to the lowliest of beings, are all suffering within samsara. The happiness of this life is completely unreliable. It may last a lifetime or only a few years, but either way, at the end of this life or within a few years, our apparent happiness will expire and we'll experience suffering. In this sense, all living beings are equal in experiencing suffering and therefore equally deserving of our compassion. Second aspect of the path, their principal aspect of the path, is bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, is a mind that is set on attaining enlightenment for the welfare of others. We have to qualify it with for the welfare of others, because there are certain Hinayana practitioners who aspire for enlightenment for themselves alone. I often feel guilty of this. I almost always have the aspiration to become enlightened, but wonder if it's for the welfare of others. I feel that way myself. Okay. Sometimes I think it is only because I want to be Buddha, which is not a bad thing, but it is not bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is a mind motivated by great love and compassion that is unable to endure the suffering of others and therefore seeks the attainment of enlightenment as a means to liberate every single living being from their own suffering. It's a big responsibility. A person who has attained bodhicitta is called a bodhisattva. This is a highly motivated individual who will stop at nothing to liberate every last living being from the sufferings of samsara. When we generate ourselves as a deity, we need to both bodhicitta and emptiness as the two fundamental components. One reason is that the whole process of generating oneself as a deity is only fully possible with the understanding of emptiness. Therefore, let's examine emptiness and the relation to the self. The two most important realizations in Mahayana Buddhism are emptiness and bodhicitta. The antithesis of these two glorious states of mind are self-grasping and self-cherishing, respectively. No one wants to be told that they're selfish, and no one will accept outright that they believe in an inherently existent I, especially a Buddhist. Therefore, the fact that we are infected with self-grasping and self-cherishing needs to be examined carefully and methodically. Before we can realize either bodhicitta or emptiness, we need to come to realize that we are in fact succumbing to these self-cherishing and self-grasping, moment by moment. They are the two things that have kept us and are keeping us and will continue to keep us in samsara forever, unless, of course, we make an active effort to eliminate them. For this to happen, the most important point is to identify them. Self-cherishing is like a drunken guest at a party. We may be able to keep it together and go unnoticed from the rest of the group, but if you pay attention, you'll come to realize that the guest is in fact intoxicated. He is clumsy or possibly belligerent. Self-grasping is like a black ops specialist. This is funny. He doesn't even have a social security number. He's very hard to locate, and in fact, most people don't even believe he exists at all. Every time you try and locate him, he anticipates your inquiry and makes himself even more elusive. It is only by approaching him with the same stealth and cunning that he employs that you'll be able to have a chance of catching even a glimpse of him. Once you identify him, you have a real chance of eliminating him. In the same way, once you've identified the elusive quality of self-grasp, you begin to undo its effects in your life. But first, we have to be willing to believe that such a thing exists, and then be willing to search him out. Self-cherishing is even more dangerous and cunning than a black ops agent. He can only bring an end to this life, but self-grasping will continue to harm us lifetime after lifetime. Jigten Rinpoche said that the key to realizing emptiness is to first realize that we grasp at the I to inherently exist. He's not alone, for this very sentiment has been echoed through the Prasangika school of thought since Nagarjuna. Jigten Rinpoche would suggest we spend months or even years until we properly identify the inherently existent I. Then, like catching the secret agent, once we have a firm grip on him, he is easy to eliminate. But until you've identified and apprehended him, dispelling him will prove impossible. Therefore, we should make every effort to properly identify our self-grasping. When we practice equalizing, exchanging self with others as a means to generate bodhicitta, we begin to realizing that we're all equal and that no one wants to suffer and that everyone wants to be happy. Next, we contemplate the fact that all of our suffering comes from self-cherishing and all of our happiness comes from cherishing others. We then develop to exchange our sense of self-cherishing into cherishing others. We further this determination by taking responsibility for the happiness of others as our own responsibility. At this point, we will come to realize that we lack the ability to liberate living beings and come to understand why we must first attain the state of enlightenment. Therefore, to make the promise to attain enlightenment for the welfare of others. This is bodhicitta. The wonderful thing about the practice of equalizing, exchanging self with others is that through it, you come to realize that all of your suffering comes from self-cherishing. All the negative karma we've ever created has been under the influence of self-cherishing. And a mind that sincerely loves and cherishes others, not a mind of attachment, seeks only to help others and therefore it creates only virtuous actions. Once we realize the great damage our self-cherishing is causing us, we'll be extremely interested in finding a way to eliminate it. Temporarily, this can be achieved through the meditation of equalizing and exchanging self with others. But ultimately, it can only be attained through realizing that the very self that we've been cherishing all along does not exist. Even though the self has conventionally existed, we don't realize is that this self that does exist, the conventionally existent I, cannot be understood until we realize emptiness. The conventionally existent I is not the body and mind. They are the basis for the I. The conventionally existent I is certainly not other than your body and mind. Instead, it's merely labeled by the mind. It is merely the conceptual imputation I upon a valid basis of imputation. That is it. Of course, it needs a valid base of imputation, but we can only realize the conventionally existent I once we realize emptiness, and we can only realize emptiness once we identify the inherently existent I. We will likely only feel motivated to do so once we realize self-grasping is the basis and cause of all of our suffering that has ever and will ever exist. It is not until we remove the conception of the inherently existent I that we'll be happy. Only when we have removed even the most subtle imprints of self-grasping can we bring our potential to work for the welfare of others to its fullest capacity. Therefore, we need to examine what is self-grasping, what is inherently existent I. If we examine the three levels of dependent arising, we see a progression of understanding that develops each degree of subtlety. The levels of dependent arising are 1. Arising dependence upon causes and conditions, 2. Parts, and 3. Mental imputation. First, there is arising and dependence upon causes and conditions. Right from the beginning, this should give rise to some suspicion about the existence of things. If we have taken this time, as Sri Rinpoche has suggested, and properly identified the object of negation, the inherently existent I, this will already be making us a little uncomfortable. Even the phrase dependence upon causes and conditions implies interdependence, which is the antithesis of inherent existence. Arising and dependence upon causes and conditions mean the various things that are other than the product we're at work at producing it. Consider the example of the chair. It requires the conception of what the chair shall be like, regardless of whether it's the very first chair or the production of some subsequent chair, for it relies upon the mind of the designer. Each model is slightly different and must be examined before production can begin. Most designers will make a sketch of the chair, which is like the beginning of its life. Then their materials, the tools, and the workshop where the chair will be made. Clearly none of the things is the chair. They are all something other than the chair, but they're all needed to produce a chair. Finally, everything comes together, the carpenter, the materials, the shop, the tools to produce a chair. Imagine the finished product is there before you. There is clearly a chair there before you. No one's going to dispute the existence of this chair. That is, unless you meet someone holding Buddhist tenets of reality. So what is needed to produce the chair? Well, first, there were the causes and conditions. If none of the causes and conditions of the chair itself, where did the chair come from? Did it come from the designer? If so, then chairs should just appear in the presence of a designer. Clearly, other causes are needed. What about a carpenter? That seems possible. If we have a carpenter with no tools, no wood, and nowhere to build his chair, will we still get a chair? Of course not. We realize that more is needed, and this is starting to eat away at our conception of chair's independence. But this is only getting a self-sufficient, substantially existent chair. This is much coarser than an inherently existent chair. So chair cannot come into existence without causes and conditions, and none of those causes and conditions are the chair. They are other than the chair. But if they're inherently other than the chair, how could they produce it? Clearly they are not inherently the same as the chair. That would be tantamount to saying a chair produces itself. You could lock a chair alone in a room and come back the next day and the room would be full of chairs. Clearly this is absurd as well. Could it be a mixture of inherently the same and inherently different? No, those are mutually exclusive. Here we are intertwining the reason of dependent arising in diamond slivers. The diamond slivers state that a thing is not produced from 1, itself, 2, other, 3, both, 4, causelessly. This is getting an inherently existent production. When it states self, other, both, and causelessly, it is referring to an inherently existent self, other, both, or causelessly. If something is inherently existent, it exists independently without relying upon something other than itself for its existence. Let's go back to the three levels of dependent arising. 1, causes and conditions. 2, parts. And 3, mental imputation. We have covered causes and conditions. Causes and conditions are needed to produce a chair or a person or anything else for that matter. Even emptiness itself, although being a permanent phenomena, is only empty in relation to the objects it qualifies. The chair, for example. If you don't have a chair, how can you speak of the emptiness of a chair? Emptiness is not a thing. It is a non-affirming negation. That is the mere absence of the inherent existence of the object. You are refuting the object inherent existence without implying anything else in its place. The famous example of affirming negative is, Fat Devadatta doesn't eat during the day. He is fat, so he must be eating, but he's not eating during the day, which implies he must be eating during the night. This is an affirming negation. A non-affirming negation would be Devadatta doesn't eat. It's not implying anything else in its place. Now let's look at the parts. Each step in dependent arising is more subtle than the previous. How is the chair dependent upon its parts? You have the legs. That's a part of the chair and not the chair itself. You also have the seat, back, arms, and so forth, which are all parts. One on their own, none of these parts are the chair itself. They are all parts of the chair. Take yourself, for example. You say, my leg is killing me. Clearly there's a person, yourself, and your leg, which is something owned by yourself. It is my leg, much like my car. The verse is something within your own continuum, and in the second, the car isn't. Nevertheless, they are both something owned by the self. They are distinct from the self. The final, most subtle way in which phenomena are dependently arising is dependent imputation. In the case of the chair, it is the mind that thinks chair in dependence upon a valid base of imputation, which are the parts of the chair. This part's tricky. The parts of the chair and the chair itself are mutually dependent. You can't designate chair without the parts, but the parts of the chair only become parts of the chair once the chair is imputed. We decide in advance what is going to have labels. We come to an agreement and teach it to others. This is a chair. There has to be a valid basis for imputation for that it must perform the functions of a chair. The chair has not existed since beginningless time. At some point it was created, then the name was ascribed to it. The problem is our sense conscious operate in such a way that the parts of the chair appear to our minds inherently existent. The label becomes fused with the basis of imputation. We assent to this appearance, and we perceive the chair to be inherently existent. The basis of imputation and the object to be imputed are inseparably one. You're now asking yourself, what does this have to do with the practice of Tantra? Well, as we shall explore further in the forthcoming chapters, we need to be able to understand the I is merely labeled by the mind as a merely dependent arising or dependent imputation, and change the basis of imputation from our current contaminated body and mind to the pure body and mind of the deity. Without understanding dependent imputation, we will not be able to effectively generate divine pride of being the deity, and we will still be holding on to our sense of self and imagine we become someone else. Instead, we need to realize that the I is not inherently existent. Dissolve the appearance of our present body and mind, our basis for imputing I, and generate a new basis of imputing I. For those who have realized dependent imputation, this very process reaffirms their understanding of emptiness, so that each moment of thinking, I am the deity, carries with it the full impact of being non-inherently existent. One of the key features of Tantra is to be able to have phenomena appearing while simultaneously ascertaining emptiness. If we want to be able to practice Tantra, whether action, performance yoga, or highest yoga Tantra, we have to be able to realize the self does not inherently exist, but is a mere dependent imputation, and bring the full import of this implication to our practice of deity yoga. Combined with the motivation of renunciation bodhicitta, we are fully armed with the quick path to enlightenment. This is the practice of Tantra. Okay, so I just wanted to have that as a little bit of review. It's a little bit, might be a little bit long there, but that sort of sums up what I've been teaching in all these sort of many sutra classes that we've done on, let's say, karma or emptiness or any of these things, this sort of pithy, in a pithy way, putting the three principal paths together just in a short practice here and commentary from David's book, from Saren's book. So that's the start, just to sort of give everybody a refresher, and now we will go into the next class, which is the importance of having a guru, and in particular, the need for a proper initiation in the practice of Tantra. David wrote this little booklet I have, you can believe it, paper booklet, on what a tantric initiation is. What does it mean to take a tantric initiation? What is it doing when you get it? So we need to talk about that a little bit, then get right into sort of the sort of spirit and practice of Kriya Tantra. Okay, so there we go. Let's just take a moment to dedicate our merit here of done this study together. Blessings of all holy beings and light beings, or all of our gurus, truth of karma, the power of a pure, superior intention, and bodhicitta. May all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled. Okay, well, we will see you next time.